Okay, Tim mentioned something. This goes back to housing and things like that. I included this in my presentation because this question comes up all the time, especially now in the last 2 years. What's the difference between a foreclosure and a short sale? In terms of housing, a foreclosure and a short sale. In a foreclosure is basically like Tim said, you walk away from the home. You simply stop paying your debts. It goes into a notice of default, and you walk away. They come and get the house. In theory, the reason that someone would do this, and I'm not advocating one or the other, I'm just giving you the facts of how they affect some of these scores. In theory, the reason that somebody would do this is because, and I have clients that have come to me and said that then what they essentially did, from the date that they stopped paying the loan to the date that it went into the notice of default, which I think was 180 days later, so 6 months later, to the date that the sheriff finally got around to coming to their house, knocking on the door and kicking them out. They lived in the house for almost a year, rent-free. Or mortgage-free. They simply didn't get their bills for a year. So in theory, somebody could be walking away with, I don't know, $35,000 in the bank that they could have been paying towards a mortgage, something like that. Now, of course, that doesn't happen. But that's the theory behind the thought process when somebody would choose to do that. Or they simply just can't pay their bills. They simply can't do it. Foreclosures do have a bigger negative impact on your score than a short sale, and it's going to take longer to rebound from. And a short sale is simply trying in good faith to sell the house. You can't afford your payments, but you want to try and sell it back. But the property value has dropped significantly. The appraisal has gone down. There's nothing, you're not going to get what you paid for on the house or what you owe on it. So you're trying to walk away but make a payment back to it. This is a very liquid subject right here in terms of short sales because legislation is coming out day after day after day about what the government's trying to get involved and try and force companies, banks, and financial institutions to accept more short sales than they have been and not write them off. Things like that to help people out. Most lenders will tell you that they're not going to negotiate or modify loans until you're already in arrears, until you're already late, 3 months or 6 months or something, so your credit score has gone down to begin with. This is one of the things that they're trying to change. They're trying to force companies to now open the door to loan modification discussions before somebody falls behind, things like that. The difference in short sales is that, at least in the state of California, as far as I know, the bank cannot sue for the amount of the primary loan, but they can try to recoup the loss for any home equity lines or second mortgages on the loan.
Correct.
Now, that being said, short sale also does significantly less damage to your credit score. So if I was to throw out a hypothetical, just so that we all understand each other, let's say you have a $500,000 property that's dropped down to $300,000. The person's considering walking away from it. They started the process with a 700 credit score. In theory, it's extremely possible that if you just let the bank foreclose on the home and come and get it and take it and walk away, you could look at a drop of 200 to 250 points. Your scores could drop down into the 500s or less with that foreclosure on your record. And it could take 3, 4, 5 years to start to rebuild that before companies would open the door to let you then consider applying for a new home loan. A short sale can drop anywhere between 150 to 200 points, but it might only take a year or so to start to rebuild that and again, get into that process. And like I said, what we're seeing now is more legislation, more lenders, more financial institutions are allowing consumer statements about short sales and things like that. Or we can negotiate. My company actually helps in negotiating the terms and how it's reported. You don't necessarily, the bank doesn't necessarily have to report the short sale as settled for a loss. There are different ways to go about getting it reported on your credit report so it won't affect your scores. We'll get into that stuff a little bit later. Quickly though, if you're in this position and you're at the point where you're considering one or the other, one of the things we recommend is contact your lender and seek out your options. Don't try and run and hide. That's never the best course of action. That seems to be the most common one that everybody does. You can request things like a forbearance on your loan, which is a 6-month to a 12-month period where they'll forgive your payments or allow you to make a lesser payment. And if you don't ask for it, you're never going to get this. But lenders also have the right. If they agree to accept a 12-month forbearance where they're going to let you make partial payments on your loan because that's all you can afford, you lost your job or something, they don't necessarily have to report it delinquent every single month that you're making less payments. However, they probably will if you don't ask for it. So these are things that you want to keep in mind. You have the right to negotiate the terms of a forbearance.